Now, new at 10, a new update tonight from our previous coverage of the Lincoln Park Farmers Market closure and financial mismanagement allegations at Community Action Duluth. Board member Wendy Durwachter has now officially become the fourth member to resign from CAD since last Friday. Recently, vendors of the farmers market have made allegations about a lack of payment and communication when those concerns were brought to the board. Additionally, a former employee that was placed on administrative leave said CAD hasn't had an in-house finance manager since 2023, leading to organization-wide financial issues. Durwachter resigned last night and provided a statement about her departure today, saying, "I have resigned from the CAD board because I have concerns about the current state of the organization, and I've concluded that further service on the board would not be an effective way to have my concerns addressed."